All right, so we'll kick off. As I said before, we've got three speakers. Honourable Mary Waldridge is just walking in up the back right now. Welcome. Colleen Hartland, who will be speaking first, the Greens spokesperson for Community Services, as I said before, and James Molino, who will be along shortly and speak after Colleen. The order of proceedings is, as I said before, each of the speakers will have about 10 minutes and then about 5 minutes. So if they speak for less than 10 minutes, there'll be a bit more time for questions. Each of the three of them will use the podium to my left, and I will open the questions and then hand over to the floor. So start thinking about your questions now. So can I start by introducing Colleen Hartland, as I said, Greens spokesman for Community Services. Colleen was first elected in 2006 and represents the Victorian Greens in the Western Metropolitan Region. Before her election to Parliament, Colleen was a public housing support worker employed by the Western Regional Health Centre. She was also a Maribyrnong City Councillor from 2003 to 2005. Colleen Hartland is the Victorian Greens spokesperson for health and a range of other portfolios, including mental health, community services, emergency services, ageing, housing, youth, women's and multicultural affairs. So there are many topics that you could ask Colleen on. That's a very broad portfolio of issues to be across. Can I please welcome Colleen to the stage?
Yes, I am the spokesperson for everything. Sometimes it helps and sometimes it doesn't particularly. But anyway, thank you very much for inviting me here today. And you might have already guessed that the Greens are incredibly committed to social justice issues. And I actually joined the Greens during Tampa because I felt that I could no longer vote for parties that felt that, destroying refugees as souls and locking them up long-term in detention was an acceptable thing to do. It was not the Australia that I had grown up in. So I've taken those values into the party, and I can say very clearly that these are the issues that we are committed to. And we believe that a whole-of-government approach to taking a strong role to the most vulnerable in our community. And we obviously face many social challenges today, and I'll go through a few of these, but I know for most people in the audience, you know all of these issues probably much better than I do. High rates of family violence, inadequacy in child protection system, lack of housing options, shortfalls in affordable mental health services, and limited further education and employment opportunities for disadvantaged young people, or especially for older people returning to work. How we respond to these issues, I believe, has a huge impact on the lives of many, particularly the most vulnerable in our community. And I would like to touch briefly today on a number of issues. And I'd like to start off by talking about housing, because we all know having good accommodation is a foundation of people's lives. And that was one of the great joys of working for the Western Region Health Centre, because I worked in the older person's high-rise program. So I only had to organise all the other services for that group of older people. I never had to organise their housing. They had secure, long-term housing. They knew they weren't going to be evicted, and it made such a difference to their lives. The housing affordability crisis has come to define the current generation. More than 22,000 Victorians are homeless on any given night, and there are nearly 35,000 people on the public housing waiting list. 41% of low-income rental households are living in housing stress. Successive Victorian governments have neglected the housing needs of a diverse, growing and ageing population. They've put affordable housing solutions in the too hard basket. And the Greens believe a caring society provides for shelter for those in need. And we will create a whole-of-government affordable housing strategy for Victoria. And we will do that with the various sectors that work in this area, because we believe that it's actually you who know about how these systems work and what works best. And a major part of the strategy will be investment to build new and renovate existing low high-quality public housing dwellings and to ensure that they are affordable, sustainable, secure and suited to clients' needs. And we intend to make a real dent in the public housing waiting list for the first time in many years. And one of the ways we'll do that is by making sure that the maintenance and repair of these dwellings is done in a timely fashion. We're all aware of a number of dwellings that are often left vacant for months and months and months because they haven't had the basic repairs done. We'll invest in rapid rehousing initiatives for individuals and families who would otherwise be sleeping rough. For those with long-term homelessness and for those who experience complex disadvantage, the Greens will invest in permanent supportive housing dwellings. The Greens' affordable housing strategy, I believe, will improve the quality of life for many people, and the full details of our plan and our funding commitments will be launched shortly. Access to quality universal healthcare is also a priority. One area of healthcare that has been neglected for a long time is mental health. And I come to this issue as someone whose father had bipolar, and I know the difficulties of trying to work the system, trying to get a family member the type of assistance they need, and with dignity. The mental health community support services are critical to provide early intervention and recovery to people suffering mental illness. They provide a whole-of-person tailored response that can address the underlying circumstances that have allowed the mental illness to take hold. Already there are many people living on low incomes who are missing out on the essential care due to shortfalls. In August, the situation, I believe, became remarkably worse. The government changed the eligibility criteria for accessing mental health community support services so that only those with severe permanent mental illness, those eligible for NDIS, will be able to use these services in future. This could mean up to 10,000 people in the next 2 to 4 years with episodic mental illness, and young people experience mental illness for the first time could miss out on vital care. This makes them more vulnerable to ending up in hospital, incarcerated or homeless. It also doesn't make economic sense. If we can actually run programs that stop people being incarcerated, ending up in a psychiatric hospital, it actually is cheaper. I don't understand why the government has done this. The Greens will invest $80 million over 4 years in mental health community support services to reopen their doors to people who are not eligible for the NDIS. We'll close the newly created gap in mental health services and restore funding to quality specialists, drop-in mental health services that were recently defunded. We'll also invest $40 million over 4 years in increasing residential services, providing employment assistance, addressing discrimination and stigma, and increasing consumer advocacy and support to carers. The issue that has come up in this election that on one hand I'm really pleased has, but it's been very traumatic, is the issue of family violence. Suddenly, people are taking notice, and I think there's a few reasons for that. One is that no longer are the deaths occurring behind closed doors, as in the case of Luke Batty and Fiona Wasikowski in Sunshine. We are now seeing the examples of extreme family violence on our streets, and we have to deal with it as quickly as possible. And we know that last year alone, police responded to over 65,000 family violence incidents and 44 family violence-related deaths. Police and family violence services are overwhelmed by the demand. To tackle family violence, we have announced a family violence action plan, and that will invest $100 million per year. We'll invest in more family violence prevention, better support services to women and children, and hold violent perpetrators to account. With a comprehensive action plan and meaningful investment, we can make a real impact on this issue. Intimately related to this issue of family violence is child protection. Every year, the number of children and young people requiring child protection and out-of-home care due to abuse and neglect grows. According to the Auditor-General, the system has been over capacity since at least 2008 due to underfunding. Poor investment decisions and neglect by both Labor and Liberal Victorian governments has meant that foster carers are also leaving the system in droves. The lack of foster carers has led to an increase in the need for expensive last resort residential care. And the Greens believe that one of the ways to fix child protection in Victoria is by increasing reimbursements for foster carers, kinship carers, permanent carers to reflect the true cost of providing care. We know that foster carers aren't looking for a wage out of this, but they want their expenses covered so that they can feel able to take more children into their care. And to invest in recruitment campaigns to return foster carers to the system. Better funding will reduce barriers to and increase foster and kinship care. And once these young people do have a stable home, they will need educational opportunities to help them secure decent work and get ahead in life. The Greens are strong supporters of TAFE. I was a mature age TAFE student at VU at St Albans, where I did the community development course when I was 40. And so it gave me a second chance at an education and a better job, and I know how incredibly vital it is. Yet TAFE funding was slashed by over $3 million in 2012 by the coalition government, resulting in courses being cut, teachers losing their jobs and students facing higher fees. And this followed the former Labor government's devastating 2008 decision to introduce market contestability for public funding for VET, which has led to a massive shift of public funds from public TAFEs to private for-profit providers. The Greens are committed to ensuring that TAFE is restored to its central place in the VET system. And we will do this by abandoning the failed market contestability model and reinstate core public funding to TAFE. With more TAFE courses in more places, we can give more young people and mature age people returning to work, or people who need to retrain because they've lost their job, an opportunity to participate productively in society. And this is I think one of the most important policies to the Greens. In conclusion, and I'm happy to answer questions obviously later, I'd like to say that with the Greens in Parliament, you can be sure of a strong independent voice holding to whichever government to account, and we will hold true to our values and focus on evidence-based decision making. Often over the years, the Greens have been criticised for what are considered to be way out policies, yet take 5, 10, 15 years and they become mainstream, and we don't abandon them just because we're criticised for them. And the Greens will continue to do our best to give a voice to the marginalised and to advocate for the needs of the most disadvantaged. Thank you.
We're going to take questions after. It's a bit hard getting up and down from the stage, so we'll take questions after each of the speakers. So as Emma indicated when she was giving the CEO speech before, I'm going to open the question unless if this topic has been referred to in each of the speakers' notes in terms of the Equal Remuneration Order. So if in government, would you commit to fully fund the outcomes of the Equal Remuneration Order, and what level of indexation would you provide to funded community organisations?
I'm happy to answer the second question, but I need to take advice from the sector on the indexation question. Having been a former SACS worker at the Western Region Health Centre, the campaign started all the way back then, and I don't understand how we can be an equal society when we're not paying people as they should be paid. But also, agencies have to have the funding to be able to do it. You cannot find the money out of thin air, so governments must commit to fully fund the equalisation.
Thanks, Colleen. Okay, so we've got a few minutes now for questions. We've got roving mics on either side of the room, so I'll take some questions from the floor. Who would like to ask the first question? Somebody can ask a question. We're here. These people have made an effort to come. It's not an easy time of year. I was just thinking we're going to have all of these pre-election speeches today. Does anybody have any questions for Colleen? There's one question. Can you please introduce yourself before you ask your question? Thank you.
Hello, Colleen. My name's Donna Bennett. I'm the CEO of Hope Street Youth and Family Services. Welcome. My question to you is around the Greens' position with relation to this. Currently there is a push and certainly a agenda with the government at the moment for organisations to become larger and for us to have few large charities being major providers of welfare services. Hope Street Youth and Family Services is a small to medium charity. We do some great work. We're a youth-focused organisation. We're innovative, we're nimble, we're accredited, we're doing all the right things, yet we're constantly under threat around what's called innovation and sometimes working together, which is basically a statement for smaller organisations need to look at merging. My concern about that is that we may end up with the big four like we do with the banks. And I'm very concerned about what that means in terms of the diversity of service delivery and the quality and the responsiveness of service delivery if we continue to go down that path. Can you just make a comment about what the Greens' position is on that?
We don't think bigger is better. And having gone around to a lot of the agencies in this 8 years that I've been in Parliament, the thing that's really struck me is that it is often the small agency, as you said, that are nimble and can actually respond to what the client needs. Now, I think one of the big problems is that for government and bureaucrats, they need a tick box that is associated with funding, but we all know, especially when you're working with a young person, it could take 6 months to get them to their very first appointment. That's a huge achievement, but where do you tick that on the box? So we have to understand that, and it's not one size fits all either. Everybody has to be done in an individual way, and we have to have some flexibility. And so I think for the smaller organisations there, I think governments and bureaucrats need to recreate how it is you report is one of the really important things, because it's often difficult to tell someone else that John came to his first appointment in 6 months. We think that's a huge achievement, and then you'll be criticised for what? Well, why haven't they done everything else? So we don't think bigger is better.
Thanks, Colleen. Any other questions for Colleen? Yes, here.
Good morning, Colleen
Hi,
and
Elizabeth.
everybody. And my question is in relation to the environment. What are the 2-3 things that you would like to see happen in Victoria regarding the environment that we live in?
One of the first things that I would like to see is, because the current government are climate change deniers, they have not planned for heatwave emergency. And so we know that this year about 200 people died during the heatwave, about 380 people died in the heatwave late running up into Black Saturday. I've repeatedly asked the Health Minister to actually talk about what is the plan for heat waves, especially for older people, especially for vulnerable people, and especially for people who English is not their first language. They just won't do it because they don't believe that heat waves are reoccurring. So I'd like the government to start off by, acknowledging that climate change is an issue. And the other things that I think that we can do to improve the environment dramatically around public transport, not building East-West Link, using the money from the East-West Link into public transport, get people moving much quicker, more bike paths that, again, it's health as well as the environment. So I think there's a whole lot of things that we can do to improve the environment dramatically. Some of them will be expensive and some of them are going to be really simple.
One more question? One more question up at the back on the left.
You are concerned about homelessness and housing.
Yes.
In 1987, United Nations declared the year for homeless people. They intended to solve homelessness by the year of 2000. Year of 2000 come and there was more homeless people than in 1987. Today, there is a lot more homeless people around the world than it was in 1987. Now, we can do something about it, but there is so much opposition to it. My question is, in 4 pages, I will give you those 4 pages because you can't answer now.
No.
And I will give you, and please do answer me.
Yeah. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions.
Thanks
and if
very
you
much.
give me those pages, that would be lovely.
Yes, I
Yep.
got them here.
Excellent.
Thanks very much.
No worries.
Thank you. Can you join me in thanking Colleen?